Hello, this is a lecture for Chapter 5 of the textbooks Security Policies and Implementation Issues. This is for ISOL 631. The chapter is Information Security Policy Implementation Issues. So successful implementation of information security depends on how well the policy is integrated into existing business processes and how well it is understood and embraced by leadership and by the employees. Security policies can slow the exchange of data within an organization, so that can cause concerns within the organization. You must build consensus on the need to implement these policies, though. Once a security policy is created or revised and agreed upon, the implementation process can then start. Implementing can be very hard also. Again, there can be some resistance. We talked about the slowness in exchange of data due to those policies. Implementing security policies successfully takes a combination of soft skills in dealing with human nature and company culture and hard skills in project management. So the learning objective for this chapter is to analyze issues related to security policy, implementations, and the keys to success. So the concepts that we will cover are policy implementation, organizational hurdles to policy implementation issues related to humans in the workplace, and the impact of executive management support. So, people are key to successful implementation of security policies. People must understand key concepts of security policies, makes application of policy easier in unanticipated circumstances. And it's not just the needs of the internal employees that you have to consider. A variety of stakeholders will have an interest in the security policies. These can include vendors, customers, and regulators. So people must be motivated to follow policy. Those motivating factors can be pride, self-interest, and success. And we will take a look at each of those. So, again, people are key. A lack of motivation can be measured in poor customer service and doing the minimum to get by with mediocre results. There are three basic elements in motivation, and those are pride, self-interest, and success. When these three elements are combined in the workplace, they often see the following: individuals and teams motivation, individuals going above and beyond their job requirements to be successful, satisfied customers, and an increase in bottom line profits. So the first circle on that graph, pride, perceived importance at work. An important component of pride involves an understanding of the overall goals and objectives. And pride, as we all know, can be a very powerful motivator. The second one, self-interest. Those are rewards and discipline. Having well-defined goals and objectives for individuals helps them understand what they must achieve. Those who achieve those goals receive rewards. Those who exceed those goals typically receive bigger or better rewards. Those individuals are those high achievers or high performers. To promote the importance of information and adherence to its policies, you should gain the support of these high performers. The next circle is success. being on a winning team. So individuals build confidence when frequently recognized for their success. These individuals quickly become highly motivated. And when all these three come together, pride, self-interest, and success, motivation is created. So the pride, self-interest, and success issues, they overlap and interact. Sustaining motivation comes by creating the right balance between these basic elements. When you achieve balance, you not only motivate individuals, but teams, departments, and an entire organization. So the personality types. So what motivates one person does not always work for another. Understanding different personality types within a team is key to understanding how to motivate people. So people might be more than one personality type. Types blend, but one may emerge as dominant and leverage strengths and weaknesses during implementation. So a breakdown of these different personality types. So the commander, they're demanding, they may not be tactful, might come across at best as impolite or even rude and abrupt. They can be forceful when they attempt to achieve their goals, but they are agents of change, breaking from the past and overcoming the barriers within the organization, so they can be useful. Drifters, they're uncomfortable with structure and deadlines, might be great with people and communications though. What they lack in discipline may offset by their creativity and being able to think outside the box. Attackers, they may seem angry or even hostile towards the ideas. They're critical of others' ideas. It may why things fall, but offer no alternative solution. They can be helpful in understanding the risks associated with a new policy, but you can't expect them to offer much for solutions. The pleasers, they're kind and thoughtful to others, and they want everyone to feel good. They might be shy away from enforcing rules that offend others. These people may not be enforcing policies. Performers, they like to be in the center of everything, the center of the stage. They like to entertain and be the center of attention. They develop over time a wit and charm to capture people's attention. These individuals are good candidates to promote awareness of the training and security policies. Like I said, you harness the wit and humor, and they can be effective communicators as to why security policy is important. Avoiders, they like to fly under the radar and just simply hang around in the background. They tend not to take charge and do anything that brings attention to themselves. While they're not good leaders at looking beyond the better of the policy, they will execute the security policy and related processes consistently. Analyticals, they like structure and deadlines. They measure their success in precise terms of the numbers. They may not be the best at understanding the human dynamics. It would be well suited for measuring the effectiveness of the information policy. Then we have the achievers. They're very results oriented. They may have several traits of the other personality types. They genuinely want to do the best results and may seek different ways to achieve it. Achievers are well suited to listening to all stakeholders and crafting security policies that meet both security and business needs. Leadership, values, and ethics. So we need leaders. They demonstrate ethical behavior, require ethical behavior from employees, recognize and they work with various personality types. They work with others to achieve goals, and they work with others to gain support for adherence to these security policies. So the different types of values or traits that they would have. So values. Good leaders have core values. Leaders share their core values with employees, and leaders seek to understand and convey the importance of the security policies. And goals. Good leaders have clear vision and set goals. They can communicate these goals both to the team and to individuals. They communicate how contributions lead to success. Good leaders will be able to communicate the importance of the policy to the organization and to the individual team goals. Training. Good leaders train their teams to focus on goals and support each other. Good leaders will make sure the team is ready to take on the additional responsibility outlined in the security policy. Support. Good leaders accept failures. Things will go wrong. People will make mistakes. How a leader reacts to those mistakes sets the tone that can be healthy or destructive. The trust the leader creates is essential to encouraging the accurate reporting of whatever is not working. Reward. Good leaders reward results, not personalities. Quick way to demoralize a team is to reward individuals based on who is liked versus who produces. A leader can measure real risk reduction because of security policies and controls, less interference from office politics will be encountered. Organizational structure. The way an organizational structure evolves over time affects the way people behave. Management must determine the behaviors and values it wants to promote. Then it can design an appropriate structure. The organizational structure chosen by management influences how security policy are put in place. So again, the organizational structure affects employee behavior, provides insight into management priorities, influence and authority of the information security officers based on position within the organizational chart. If they're down in the IT department, they may not have much influence and authority. If they're reporting directly to the chief financial officer or the chief information officer, they have more influence and authority. So a typical organizational chart. As you can see in this figure on the screen, the business has decided to centralize the information technology or IT functions. This is typically called shared services. This term relates to a department or team that provides similar services across an entire organization. By centralizing services, a business can reduce operating costs. So here, the CISO reporting directly to the Chief Financial Officer. The Chief Financial Officer, so the Chief Information Security Officer reported directly to the CFO. The CFO's role is traditionally a powerful position. So it's more likely that information security is perceived as a business concern rather than solely as a technology issue. This allows information security policies to be given a higher priority across the enterprise. In this next organizational chart, we see that the CISO role reports 3 or 4 layers deep within the IT department. So the CISO would not have the organizational muscle to implement security policies with the same perceived influence or authority. This does not mean security policies can't be implemented effectively. The difference would be the approach used given the organizational realities. In this case, the security officer would most likely seek greater executive involvement rather than rely on the CFO's influence and authority. So flat organizations. Another consideration is span of control, which relates to the number of layers and number of direct reports found in an organization. The span of control widens when a leader has many direct reports. It tends to flatten an organization. This is called a flat organizational structure. So the positive aspects of the flat organization have limited number of layers between top and bottom employees. Leaders are close to the workers to actually deliver the products and services. You can make decisions more quickly, has more confidence to motivate. Security policies cannot be as abstract. Leaders responsible for products and services, and you have the decentralized authorities. But the challenges that flat organizations have, the span of control can be too wide. Maybe a manager has too many employees that report to them. There's no time to bring every problem to management for resolution because, again, they're covering so many employees. You need high caliber teams comfortable with independent decision making. Again, management won't have as much time for each individual decision. May have problems with conflicting statements to regulators by the subordinate and senior leadership. And when defining a security policy, it must decide clearly how issues are to be identified, cataloged, debated, and escalated. But there's no magic rule on the right number of direct reports that a manager should have. As the span narrows, the organization gains layers, and this is called a hierarchical organizational structure. More layers tend to make an organization bureaucratic. Hierarchical organizations are necessary. They allow specialties to thrive and produce high-quality products and services. So who benefits from the hierarchical organizations? So very large organizations, like very large banks, large manufacturers. Disadvantages: senior leaders are more detached from day-to-day operations. Messages from senior leaders have to be reinforced through all management layers. There can be a lack of accountability because the organizations can be so large. There also can be communication breakdowns, and there's too many touch points and personalities must be engaged. The advantages of that type of model, though, for hierarchy of specialization, so you can more specialized abilities within your organization. Communication lines have to be more clearly defined. There's greater depth of knowledge in the subject area, and the matrix relationships can be complex. So one thing that you will have to deal with in implementing security policies is user apathy. In its basic form, apathy is indifference and lack of motivation. An employee who is apathetic often goes through the motions. This attitude results in poor performance and doing the minimum to get by. In case of security policy, it's hard to imagine that doing the minimum keeps information safe. So overcoming user apathy. You need to engage leadership and adjust implementation strategy to include role-based explanation of policy. Reinforce importance and value of information security through ongoing awareness program. Leadership should set the expectation that policy will be followed and monitor compliance. Increase involvement by introducing redundancy. Don't rely on a single individual whenever possible. Leadership should seek opportunities to recognize and reward compliance. So there's an importance of having executive management support. Implementing security policy starts with executive management. Without executive support, policies are just words. They simply won't work. Unfortunately, some executives see involvement with security policies and risk awareness as an IT issue and a distraction given their other priorities. However, executive management support is critical to success of security policy implementation and acceptance throughout the organization. So the relevance of executive management support, you have the data aligns with the business objectives, and the business objectives align with compliance regulations, and then the security policy implementation can expect executive management support. And then of course, without executive management support, data will not align with the business objectives. Business objectives do not align with the compliance regulators, or it's unclear, and security policy implementation can fail without executive management support. So, relationship between human resource policies and security policies. Well-defined human resource policies provide the framework that governs employee relations. Human resource policies state core business values and what is expected. They can also prevent misunderstandings. So this graphic on the page illustrates the relationship between human resources and security policies. First, a human resource policy would state the core value. This could be as simple as computers are for the company use only, or it could detail the type of material prohibited. Maybe you can't use Facebook. Security policies could then align by outlining the acceptable uses of the internet. Preventive security controls can be designed to block unacceptable sites. Worker who finds a way around these controls may be discovered through detection controls that scan company computers for unauthorized software and information. If such material is found, management can determine what policy disciplinary action is needed, if any. Management would look to HR policies for that guidance. After working with human resources, management might decide if formal warning or even termination is appropriate. So this next graphic shows how this model can be adopted to implement security policies. You would cycle through this model each time you added a new security policy or made a major change to an existing policy. This model ensures that before you start a formal implementation, you have the leadership supported needed to succeed. So those steps would include step 1, create urgency, make sure employees understand how important the security policy is, form a powerful coalition, create a vision for change, and communicate that vision. Remove any obstacles in the way, create short-term wins, then build on the change, and finally step 8, anchor the change in the corporate culture. So various roles. Although business leaders may be ultimately responsible, they rely on key technology roles to keep them out of trouble. These roles are accountable for implementing security policies, monitoring their adherence, and managing day-to-day activities. So these roles include Information Security Officer, the individual accountable for identifying, developing, and implementing security policies. Executive, the senior business leader accountable for approving security policy and implementation. Compliance Officer, it's a person accountable for monitoring and adherence to laws and regulations. Data Owner, it's typically someone in the business who approves access rights to information. And Data Manager, it's a person who's responsible for establishing procedures on how data should be handled. Data Custodian, it's a person responsible for the day-to-day maintenance of the data. Data User, that's someone who's the end user of an application. Data users are accountable for handling data appropriately. Then the Auditor, that's a person accountable for assessing the design and effectiveness of the security policies. An auditor can be internal or external to the organization. So tying security policy to performance and accountability. Measuring the effectiveness of security policies is essential to maintaining leadership support. So things that you have to measure include number of security violations by employees reported. You should investigate any unexplained increases in this number to determine why an abnormal number of security violations has occurred. One reason might be the lack of training. Second thing you need to measure is the number of incidents that could have been avoided. When a security breach occurs, you need to determine the core cause. This root cause can tell you if a contributing factor was a policy failure. And implementation and competency rates for security awareness. You should track which individuals have completed security awareness training. Additionally, the training should measure the level of competency with the material. This training needs to be refreshed and redone at least once a year. So a summary of the things covered in this chapter are the importance of executive management support to implement security policy, the steps for implementing a security policy, and the issues that you might come into that impact the policy implementation. And this really relates to people in the workplace. Outside of the book, a few other things that you might need to take into consideration for security policies. Things to consider per Citadel Information Group. Organization's strategic focus and evolving business direction. You also need to consider the nature and type of information used in the organization. Also different classes of information users and the types of information each one makes use of. Needs for information sharing and protection between different parts of the organization. The needs for information sharing and protection between organization and suppliers, vendors, customers, and business partners. Legal information privacy compliance requirements, obligations, and duties. The organization's security culture and its opportunities for cultural change. Changes in culture can be very, very difficult. So that needs to be taken into consideration. Organization's current and evolving technology infrastructure. Also need to take into consideration any history of information losses, and that provide lessons learned for policy developers. Other informational needs for confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Already existing information security policies and standards, and also the other organization policies and standards. One thing we talked about from the book was the idea of keeping employees motivated and keeping them engaged. One aspect of a way to do that is to have proper incentives for security. And one suggestion is a gamification of security. So people can earn points by finding bugs in software. You can earn points by taking a training course. Earn points by reporting a phishing message they received. You can earn them by reading a security-related publication, so having motivation to keep them up to date on current security literature. And by stopping a tailgating attempt to enter a facility. If someone does not have their security badge when they sign in, or they don't recognize this person, that can stop them from getting into the facility. So there's different activities that are worth different points, and people can accumulate these points. And then the accumulation of these points obviously lead to some type of rewards. So it creates a game that motivates people to adhere to the security policies. Again, this is one way to motivate people and keep them engaged with the security policies. Thank you.